Hello, everyone. My name is Dominic Grant, and welcome to the first episode of the Hawk and Dove podcast. This is the introductory video for a channel that will focus primarily on American foreign policy, political theory, current events, and military history. So, who am I and why did I decide to start a channel like this? 2022 was what I like to call a character building year. Events around the world have impacted the daily lives of Americans, and I felt it was important to explain why these events were happening and give a form of substantial context and analysis for these events. Because listening to commentary, especially within conservative circles, I've noticed a disturbing trend, and this trend is primarily a growing self-critique on everything that is American or Western. While I do share some agreement with these commenters, criticizing the more progressive and globalist aspects of the collective West, I think there is a fine line between legitimate criticism versus ideological spin for every event that happens in this crazy world. And I think this spin leads to a problem of confusing Americans into wrong conclusions or misjudgment on very important foreign policy issues like the Ukraine war, or relationship with China, or economic deals, or uh, other negotiations happening around the world. It is my view that the United States will be set for a decline if we get these issues wrong. So this is primarily my motivation for making this channel. I hope this channel will eventually lead to influencing the foreign policy discussion and educate interested individuals on having a greater knowledge of American foreign policy, its history, terminology, and the other topics that this channel will cover. I will probably in the future make response or reaction videos to specific channels that are of interest to me, but for the first 2 to 3 videos, I will establish some form of baseline for political theory and foreign policy terminology, and also the principles of foreign policy that I would consider fundamental in context of current events. So why should you listen to me? What are my expertise and what kind of analysis can be worth so while that you would spend your valuable time listening to this random guy on YouTube? For starters, my undergraduate degree was in political science. So I don't have a master's or doctorate in any particular field when it comes to foreign policy. What I do have is an interest in foreign policy, current events, which is partly why I selected my career in, or excuse me, my degree in political science and my current career as a field artillery officer in the United States Army. So my political beliefs probably will revolve more around the hard power and conservative side of the political spectrum, just in case you're curious about my own political beliefs. And my expertise is largely in that hard power, military history, and terminology. So my apologies in the future to anyone who is of an economic, technological, diplomatic background for my ignorance on all these subjects. So I do hope that while I don't have exactly the most glorious of credentials, I hope that my experiences, logic, and choice of topics will be interest to the listeners of this channel. All right, so why did I choose the name Hawk and Dove? The name Hawk and Dove typically comes from an understanding that if you are pro-war, you are a hawk. If you're pro-peace, you're a you're a dove. And typically the political spectrum is hawks are typically Republican while doves are Democrats. But that's not why I chose the name. The real reason why I chose the name was because The Hawk and Dove is my favorite bar in DC, and I am a firm believer that every great political conversation comes at the end of a bourbon glass. So the bourbon that I am drinking tonight is Woodford Reserve. In the future, I will make a proud declaration of which bourbon I am drinking for the video, and I will appreciate any and all suggestions of bourbon or whiskey in the comment section. Alright, so what am I going to be covering? Largely, I wanted this channel to be a course correction on foreign policy discussion, especially within conservative circles. Too often, I've seen both mainstream and on similar YouTube channels a tendency to be overdramatic or blow current or have reactions that are over the top when it comes to current events. Just for an example, the Ukraine war has been one such event where American foreign policy and its interests tend to be based solely on preconceived political affiliation. Depending on where you fall on the political spectrum, you'll have a preconceived notion of what the response will be, whether you're on the Republican, Democrat, conservative, progressive, independent side of house. So going forward, I will be fully transparent in my political beliefs, and in this video, I will state that my political beliefs are more traditional conservative, and my outlook is probably much more conservative than probably most Americans. But I do want to say that I will be transparent and honest about my political beliefs and opinions on certain topics. So for starters, what even is American foreign policy? This all-encompassing umbrella term that covers military, political, economic, sociological, cultural, and almost everything under the sun term. For starters, American foreign policy can be defined as the strategy that America uses when deciding how to handle interactions with other countries, while having the mechanisms to make those decisions into reality. From my background in just the United States Army, I can tell you that this is a massive undertaking that requires vast resources, time, and leadership to make it all possible, especially for successful policy. Just as a brief history lesson, officially American foreign policy started in 1775 with the initial rebellion of the 13 colonies, which would eventually become the United States of America in 1776. American foreign policy has changed its priorities and methods in which it implements strategies throughout its history, from neutral status during the French Revolutionary Wars to Monroe Doctrine to Manifest Destiny to imperialism to world wars to containment to the global war on terror and now into the 21st century. American foreign policy has guided the nation into the most forerunning superpower that the world has ever seen. Whether you like it or not, the United States is the most powerful nation currently on planet Earth and since 1945, and it will continue to have a massive influence over the entire world for the rest of this century, barring the unthinkable. There are many schools of thought on where American foreign policy should go. But fundamentally, the greatest aspect of American foreign policy is that there is no singular school of thought when it comes to what should be done. For instance, the former Soviet ambassador to the United States, Andrei Gromyko, stated once that the Americans had too many doctrines and concepts proclaimed at different times, and that we were unable to form a solid, coherent, and consistent policy. Referencing Walter Russell Mead's book, Special Providence, American Foreign Policy and How It Changed the World, America actually has many schools of thought when it comes to foreign policy. In Mead's book, there exists the Jeffersonian, Hamiltonian, Jacksonian, and Wilsonian schools of thought on foreign policy. I won't get into the specific details about the similarities and differences between the four groups, but this book highlights the decentralized aspect of American foreign policy. This reality goes to show that American foreign policy is not dictated by a singular party, regime, or political ideology, and is actually guided by a multitude of different political beliefs, desires, and interests. And this reality has been understood throughout the entire history of the United States, going back as far as the founding, where in the Federalist Papers it was discussed on how different factions would actually cause a sort of harmony with all these different factions and schools of thought in the United States. In closing, American foreign policy has shaped world events, whether by accident or design, and debates on current events and foreign policy issues are just as important in 1776 as they are now. American power, in my view, will not decline over the next century, rather be more codified along different lines. Therefore, it is important to continue the discussion as accurately and to the best of our abilities while not serving some ideological drive. So I hope this video was a good start to the channel and hopefully a precursor to building a community that is optimistic about America's future that will lead to stability and prosperity not just for the United States but also for the world. Alright, brief channel update to close out this video. I hope this short video is a precursor for not only myself but also any viewers or interested individuals who want to help this channel grow. I'm not sure about the format of this video or this entire channel, and I will continue to see if this presentation style works for most people. I am curious to see if people are interested in a foreign policy podcast like this. I think in addition to making videos that cover historical topics, political theory, or foreign policy terminology, I will also do commentary and response videos to other channels whom I agree, disagree, or just find interesting. Feel free to leave your comments below. Like and subscribe as well. As this is the introductory video, I thought it would be prudent to mention that I have a linked Patreon in the description of the video. I look forward to any and all patrons of the channel and seeing where this channel will go. Thank you in advance to anyone who decides to become a patron of this channel. Thank you for listening. God love you. Viva Cristo Rey.